Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Industry in Transition podcast, Zoomcast, whatever you want to call it. We're very happy to have Andy Schwartz with us today, who's the managing partner at Bleakley Financial, not the CEO, the managing partner. I love that idea. How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing great, thanks. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. I think I mentioned I was, wearing my William Shatner sports shirt collection here. I'd like to change it up a little bit. I think I mentioned I was in a baseball hat for Joe Duran, so you're getting a little bit better. I feel like I'm hunting, big game hunting in Africa with this thing. So let's talk a little bit about, I think it's hard to start a discussion about anything that's going on in the world without mentioning sort of the huge thing, the COVID stuff, and how your firm got through it. And we're just coming to the end of it. I'm assuming you see some light at the end of the tunnel here. How was it? Managing a firm, and you continued to grow during it, so I'm just interested in getting people's perspectives on it.
Sure. Yeah. Like for everyone, it was a bit of a challenge. For us, we actually had COVID in the office at the end of last March, a year ago. And I was actually sick for a month. So the month of April last year, I had COVID for the month. So it was a bit of a challenge because, for me, I probably have missed maybe 5 or 6 days being sick over the last 35 years. I tend to play hurt. And we were all out of the office because once someone got it, the office cleared out. We didn't open up again until July 4th. And that month of April, we were trying to figure out a way for everybody to work, efficiently from home. But at the same time, I only had enough energy to work until about noon. So I was very happy, when May came around and I started to feel, much better and obviously fully recovered. But I would say that it's been a mixed blessing. But, when it's all over, I think that other than obviously people being sick and unfortunately some people even, dying, but from a business standpoint, and from a lifestyle standpoint, I think that the aftermath of COVID is going to be a real blessing. I bought a place in Florida over in March. I would have never, ever thought about spending time in the winter in Florida and not being in the office every day. And we're much more efficient now. We don't do conference calls anymore. Everything's a Zoom call. And if I'm Zooming and seeing them and they're seeing me, I feel like there's less of a need for me to have to be face-to-face. And if I don't have to travel into the city or running around, seeing people all the time, it just makes life much more easy and much more efficient.
Well, we're just talking. There's a level of acceptance, right, with this. So this is okay. It can't be. This would never have worked if it was a one-way street. In other words, it wouldn't have worked if this is just easier for us. It saves you plane fare and all that. The clients and the advisors everybody's got to be good with it.
Yeah. And even for the clients, you don't think about it, but if you're going to go to their office, it's a little bit of interruption. A call can be 15 minutes. When you go to someone's office, they feel like they have to talk to you for a little bit, right? They almost are being a host. Meetings last longer. So no, I think the clients like it as well.
Has that changed your mind about real estate or made you rethink some things real estate wise going forward? I've heard different things from different, from one CEO, he was looking at 80,000 square feet in Manhattan. Now he's going to be like 30,000 square feet. I've heard others, individual advisors say that, hey, they're going to rearrange when their leases are up, they're taking less space, maybe just a nice space for clients, you know what I mean? And sure. Sort of a sales desk in the back.
Yeah, it's a conversation that's happening here. I like being in the office when I'm in Jersey with my team. I think that we're more efficient and effective when we're together, but that doesn't mean that if somebody needs to be at home on a Friday that we're opposed to it. So the firm we're about to take on more space because we're in a pretty rapid growth mode. But we are having the conversation, for sure. And the one thing that's been helpful is that landlords are under some pressure. So the other side of getting smaller is that you can negotiate a better lease. And we're finding that we're having success with that right now.
And how many locations are you guys in these days?
Yeah, we have more than a dozen locations now, typically small. The Fairfield office that I work out of is a large location, with over 100 people. Our other locations are much more satellite locations. But I want to say there's 14 locations now, including Fairfield.
Wow. Well, it's all part of growing, and you could start saving money, scale wise. But what are you hearing from advisors now that you're out there? Now the post-COVID, we see how you're managing a partnership. Love the fact that it's a partnership too. I think that that's one of the models that's most appealing to people as they look around from, say, a wirehouse, right? To they want to look at a partnership. They want to see that. What are you hearing? What are they saying as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's reasons why people want to leave where they are, and then there's things that they think are important to them. And sometimes it's hard, or it's our job to kind of help them understand what really is important and what isn't. What a good reason not to leave somewhere is fear, because we think that fear tends to be a big motivator. I think fear and complacency. I'm making good money, life's easy. I know I shouldn't be here. I know I'm not going to reach my capability or my full potential here, and I'm also afraid, what if people don't come with me? So we have a lot of those conversations. And then we try to have conversations about try not to sell your future for, short-term gain. Try not to make long-term financial decisions based on short-term cash flow needs. We always talk about that, whether it's in your practice and making investments in your practice, or try to really find the place that you can really grow your business and create enterprise value.
It's funny. Yeah, advisors are funny. It's a little bit like the cobbler's, kids with no shoes. I mean, they know, because you look at your client book, and you're a player, captain, coach. So you got clients, right, and the whole thing. So, but you look at your client book and you see real wealth has always been created by business owners, right? You inherit or you own a business.
Absolutely.
And then you sort of keep leveraging your business by selling it to the next firm, and then you got a little time versus staying and building something. I mean, inherently, they must know that they're going to do better if they find a partnership where they can, make real money.
It's a great point. What I always ask my prospective advisor is, I say, let me ask you a question. Your richest clients, the people that you deal with that have the most money, where did the money come from? And it's always the same. It's typically a sale. They created a business, it was very successful, and they sold it. I'm going to see a client tonight that sold the business for over $200 million, this year, 2 months ago. And so what I say to the advisors are, why do we have this mentality that we're just worker bees, that we just work and work and work? We make really good money, but we never think about the enterprise value that we're creating or the wealth that we could create for ourselves or our families. And so we really try to get them to think about that, because we think that that's really important.
Well, I mean, I guess I'd love to be a fly on the wall in some of those conversations. I think there are some people that are uncoachable. You know what I mean?
Right. Sure.
I'm sure you've run into that before.
Yeah.
But how does it, how do those conversations typically go from an advisor point of view? What's the turn on the light moment where they, oh, I get it. You know what I mean? When they can start to see, and I would also keep in mind that a lot of us were screwed, right? Because we owned stock in some of these big companies prior to 2008. I can look at myself. I lost millions of dollars, right? And just evaporated overnight. So there's maybe a hesitancy because of that, although I think these smaller partnerships feel different than that. I don't know.
Yeah, and also when you think about our business and the way it transacts, it's EBITDA, right? So, there's a revenue flow. If an advisor has $2 or $3 million of revenue flow, and they have, half of that, say, in EBITDA, you start to put an 8, 10, 12, 15, times multiple on that. Nothing really can disappear as long as their business doesn't disappear, and we don't think that will ever happen. So it gives you a chance to bet on yourself, but put yourself in an environment where you can leverage the value. And that's really what it's all about. You've got to find a place, whether it's at Bleakley or somewhere else, where you can leverage your business, you can increase your capacity, you can leverage your time, and then ultimately leverage the enterprise value. That's what everybody should be thinking about. Wherever that is, that's what they should be thinking about. So
help me out with it, because I like this idea of capacity. I think I understand what you're talking about there, but that seems to me to be a critical piece. So because you're on your own, in the same way you could leverage the value of your business by joining a firm where you're a partner, right? So now you got everybody's, you're scaling up your leverage, right? And then, but capacity seems another way that, I'm on my own, you don't have the capacity. Is that what, am I reading that right?
Yes,
is that what you mean?
100%. Yeah, so I always say to people, don't make a move to get a higher payout, or don't make a move to get a check, because you're in the same place you were before. In my old broker dealer, a lot of talented people, but there was like 10,000 one person armies running around the landscape. and everybody's sort of replicating it, duplicating, and there was just no leverage or efficiency in it. So the idea is for us is that we always worked almost like a co-op here. So if there's 40 advisors, we can make investments together. So my chief investment officer, Peter Bookvar, is world-class. He's a guy that gets on TV all the time. He's always writing. And so I could never afford to have Peter Bookvar in my office if it were Andy Schwartz by himself. But with 40 advisors sharing, it doesn't cost, the people that join us really anything, arguably. And so everything that we do is a sharing process. So the work we have, we have think tanks, and the think tanks do all the work. So if you're going to go somewhere, you've got to go somewhere where they give you capacity you don't currently have. And the cost for that capacity is substantially less than it would be if you had to create it yourself. And the big benefit is that you can then spend your time and energy, either servicing the clients you have and finding new ones, because that's really what we're best at, and not being involved in all the minutia of running a business.
And I also, another way to look at that is scale, right? So
Absolutely.
You worry about what's going to happen in a new regulatory environment. You have Reg BI, and we just wrote a story at AdvisorHub about, the new head of SEC compliance, basically saying, don't look for ambiguities in this thing. We mean what we say.
Yeah.
It's just on your own, that seems a bit frightening.
Yes, it's a great point. And so our pitch, our belief system, if you will, at the firm is that we are about alignment, capacity, and scale. Those are really the three words that describe, what we believe in. And the idea is alignment is because since I'm an advisor, my partner's an advisor, we're all advisors. So whatever's happening to my advisors in the field is happening to me. So I'm not some manager, I'm not some private equity guy. My goal isn't to grow a business to take it public. My job is to grow my business and is to help other advisors grow their business. And I need everything that they need. The capacity is the idea of the sharing, right? Where we can create more and more things to help them do that. And as we join together, make investments. The scale is huge though, because the business has gotten so complicated and everything, you need so many things and everything's so expensive. So an example of this idea of scale and also the regulatory environment, we just hired a full-time pension consultant, 401 consultant to basically help all of our advisors make sure that all of their plans are, in regulatory compliance. And with the idea that they can go out there into the world and start kicking tires of prospects' plans and pointing out what's wrong with their plans, because we, have the proper solution. And even having our expert, if you will, our in-house professional, be the person to go out and do that. So that again, there's leverage there, and it's going to cost the almost nothing when you break it down over 40 people. So that's the scale we're trying to create. And then ultimately, valuation, scale on a valuation side. The bigger the firms are, the greater the valuations from
How do you see that taking place in the marketplace? I mean, I think there's a argument. I've heard CEOs come on the show and argue that this is becoming a scale play, that, it's that businesses are becoming almost too expensive to buy, or it's hard to rationalize some of the valuations, out there, but that you have to join together, and, the smaller single person RIA is going to go away, kind of thing, basically.
Yeah, I can't imagine being in this business by myself for a whole host of reasons, but certainly, how do you manage and pay for all the things that you have to have in order to run an efficient and a competitive business to attract, clients? So yeah, to me, it's, to go from one platform to another and to basically be by yourself with 3 or 4, staff, to me it doesn't make any sense at all. And they are going to disappear. They're going to disappear like a solo physician has disappeared, where if you're not in big groups, you can't survive, in the medical world, and it's going to be the same in our world.
Yeah, you'll have the outliers maybe, but I think that's one of the things that industry is worried about. And you also, you look at, there was just some articles today I was reading, somebody wrote, I don't know if it was Michael Kitchis or not, was because you look at what size advisors they're looking for scale, this $100 million something, to go, look, there are some platforms out there, and we don't have to talk about who they are, but there are some platforms that are just not worthwhile unless you're doing 5 million or so. But if you're doing 5 million, they're great. Don't get me wrong, you can get a lot of stuff, but you need to be a pretty good sized, team and to take advantage, of them. And that the $100 million guy is sort of the basic thing. But if you're 75 or 80, your life's much harder.
Right. And it's a great point. If you have 10 or 12 staff people and you've got 5, 6, 7, $8 million of revenue, you can go to that platform that really just offers you technology, trading, but you can do that, right? Because and at a good price, because you've got the people to execute. But if you were a $100 million, producer, you don't have 8 staff people. You don't have a trading group. You don't have your analyst team to put everything together. You don't have all those people. So the idea is you have to find a firm that can create that capacity for you. And I know we're not the only firm that does that, but that's really our, that's what we think is our competitive advantage. We want to create that capacity for them. It isn't just about a good payout or technology. Everybody's got great technology. Someone has to do the work for you. Someone has to leverage, your platform, and that's what
I want to say it's the nicest way possible, but all advisors think they're entrepreneurs until it gets down to it. I interviewed a guy from Brooklyn, different firm, but he was interesting because he went from being independent, he went back to an employee channel, because it fit. He knew what he wanted to do. He realized he had $1 billion that he grew on the independent. So I'm just saying it's different for everybody, but you got to kind of know yourself. And he's like, at the end of the day, I'm a sales guy.
Exactly.
I'm not like the hassles of managing a business, and it was just his point of view,
I have so many conversations, particularly with these younger advisors, really talented. And they give me this thing about they want to be independent, they want to be in control. And the problem is people don't even know what they don't know. And because we've been doing this for so long, and we've seen so many mistakes and made lots of mistakes, what you don't want to do is if you have to have control, whether it's ego or whatever drives that, and if that means that you have to get inundated with the minutia of running a practice where your skill set is probably not there, the reason you have $1 billion under management is because you're a great communicator. People like you, they trust you, and you're, and it's not a bad word, but you're a very good salesperson. And the reality is those are not the skills to run an operation. You hire people to do that. And that's been our philosophy all along. As a player coach, I have 4 partners. I have a great leadership team. I'm not running this place. That's not my skill set. That's that's not my skill set.
I spent time, when I was working at a different firm, I spent time with Bart Starr, and he was coming out giving some speeches, and I drove him around in the car, and he's the hero, right? It's Bart Starr, the guy who won all the Super Bowl, and his coach was Vince Lombardi.
Yeah.
But one of the things I took away from it was that he was an unbelievable football player, and he called his plays on the right. He was coached up. He was a terrible coach, and even though he knew the game, and he his mentor was Vince Lombardi. You could parrot those things, but you just can't. Some people are good at it, and some people are one of the best players ever, right? And it wasn't really his thing to do the coaching, and he coached, but it was just okay.
Yeah, and I think in the NFL, you find that the guys that were not Hall of Fame players turn out to be the best coaches.
Yeah,
totally different. It's a totally different skill set.
Different skill set, and it's very difficult, I think, when we as a group, we fancy ourselves to be entrepreneurs, and I think this is it's going to be one of the challenges coming up. And again, with the new regulatory administration and all that, is we look at ourselves a certain way, but the reality is, we're not entrepreneurs. I've written a fair amount about the back to the sports analogy of like, when you say it's a game, I say it's a business. When I say it's a business, you say it's a game. That's always the challenge with working, for a firm, right? Because you're trying to have a good time, but at the same time, every time you want to need extra money for an account, they go, oh, it's your business. You're an entrepreneur.
Right.
And then like, well, okay, I guess I'm an entrepreneur now. They say, well, pay me more commission. Like, no, you're an employee. There's no getting around it.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I think firms, it's the independent firms that sort of can balance that thing are the ones that are going to succeed. That can balance that sort of back and forth.
Yeah, look, it has to be partnership. Anything we do has to be good for the firm, but it has to be good for the advisor. And that's the only way any good partnership works. Both parties have to feel that they're being treated fairly, and both parties have to feel like they're aligned. And if you can sort of master that balance, then I think you can be very successful. and that's what we always strive for.
I almost want to end there, but I do want to say one more, just talk a little bit more about partnership, because I feel like that's one of these cobbler's shoes issues, cobbler's kids, issues as well. Whereas advisors, they're in the stock and bond business, they're talking equities, their clients are business owners. But when it comes to moving to firms and figuring out equity ownership, they don't do a lot of due diligence. They're not doing a lot of good due diligence anyway.
Right. I mean, it's difficult. And because the size of your business by yourself, I was talking to a really smart advisor who had heard me on a different podcast, and he had reached out to us. And he said, I don't listen to a lot of this stuff, but what I got from you was 1 + 1 = 4. And that's exactly right. 1 + 1 = 4. I mean, I have a pretty big business. My AUM is about $1.5 billion in advisory. So I'm very blessed, and, we make good money. And so that means that my value of my business is pretty substantial, but my business is substantially greater because of the other $6.5 billion that I'm associated with. And so the idea is, I think that what everybody has to realize is that, even though you're the biggest fish, in say your pond, you can create tremendous value or greater value if you can come together, with others. And not only that, but the capacity that you can create, the scale you create, and the freedom of letting other people take care of some of those functions that you were doing, which, by the way, are just taking away from, your revenue, because it's not what you're good at. And so I think that it has to come down to, obviously you got to make a fair deal. We don't buy practices. I look at it, it's their practice. What we want to do is we just want to be partners. We want to be partners and create 1 + 1 = 4 with all of us. So we don't really get so involved in the evaluation process because we're not buying them. We're bringing everybody on in a partnership basis.
Yeah, making new partners. Well, I'm going to say let's end at that. It was that's the good high note there, and it was great talking with you. And look, we could do this again. I know you guys are going to communicate more on AdvisorHub with everybody, so we get a chance to see you again.
Anytime, happy to talk. Anytime.
Thanks a lot, Andy.
My pleasure. Good to see you.